don't think you guys understand how much has happened since we last spoke. Both the Senate and the House approved the releasing of the Epstein files, meaning it's only got Trump until it is signed into law. Ronaldo, out of all people, went to the White House after requesting a meeting with Trump. There's been allegations of black magic, voodoo being used in a World Cup qualifier. Nicki Minaj addressed the United Nations. And there has been a huge twist in the DIVID case, and it goes against everything we thought we knew. Oh, and a new study suggests that raccoons are showing early signs of domestication. My lord. All of that and so much more. Subscribe to the channel or risk Alex being fired on Christmas Day. Yes, I've decided that now. Oh, we've got so much to go over, so let's stop the yapping and let's go. Okay, yesterday was a wild day, specifically in America, because so much happened. It was crazy. Firstly, the House came out and they were like, all right, we are overwhelmingly voting for the releasing of the Epstein files. And you wonder how overwhelmingly? 427 voted yes. One person voted no.
Whoa. Ew. Well, ew.
Most famous man of the day. Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana, a supporter of Donald Trump, was the sole House member to vote against the measure. That is, bro, I bet he's regretting that when he saw he was the only one.
What do you mean, ew? I talked to you earlier. No, I said, shh, dude, people are gonna hear you being a fucking sicko.
Now, after everyone started writing articles about him and wondering, who is you? Who is you, bro? And what do you have to hide? He wrote a long paragraph on Twitter, as you can see right here. Pause and read it if you want. But yeah, he did get community noted, saying that he misrepresented the whole bill and everything. Point is, you don't want to be the only one. But here's the crazy part. Everyone was saying, oh, the Senate will now have to vote on it, and then there could be some complications and hold things up there. No. They voted on it the same day. That is, dare I say, close to unprecedented of this kind of thing. They too unanimously agreed to fast track it and pass it, and now it heads off to Trump. And which, let me remind you, Trump already said before both the House and the Senate voted that he would sign it off and he wants these files released. And that means that if Trump signs it off, that means they have to be released within 30 days, meaning we could see the files before the end of the year. That is wild. But the big question now is, what version of the files do we get? Do we get heavily redacted stuff, or do we get mostly unredacted stuff? Well, according to instructions in the bill, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has authorized to, quote, withhold or redact any material that could endanger national security or jeopardize an active federal investigation. But in saying that, the Epstein Files Transparency Act does prohibit the Department of Justice, meaning Pam Bondi, from withholding records in these files just because they would be embarrassing, have reputational harm, or, it's politically sensitive. So interpret that as you wish. I don't know whether they can fit everything into national security, but they probably can. But here's the thing that's also quite interesting. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he said after the Senate agreed to, pass it through, that he was deeply disappointed in the outcome because he didn't want the files to be released in the condition that they were signed off by in the House. He thought that the Senate would come along and be like, oh, no, we'll change this, and here. No, they said, let's go, let's run it. Mike Johnson also said that he spoke to Trump about this issue, and both of them said that they had concerns.
I'm not saying that.
Is he supportive of it in its current form?
We both have concerns about it, so we'll see.
Interesting. Could this be a door opening for Trump to be backtracking on where he said that he wanted to release it? I really hope not. And if Trump goes 180 yet again, I might quit. So yeah, a lot happening to do with that yesterday, but it doesn't end there because we've also got Ronaldo entering the White House. Let's get to that. Moving on. So here's the craziest thing about Ronaldo going to Washington is that apparently, according to multiple sources, Ronaldo was the one who asked to go. Because obviously, Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi, which is where Ronaldo plays, and obviously has a very good connection with them, he was heading to Washington anyway to, have trade negotiations with Trump, which, interestingly, when the Crown Prince and Trump were in their meeting, obviously it was very public, they had an agreement for $600 billion of investment in the United States. In that meeting, just casually, he was like, oh yeah, by the way, that $600 billion is going to $1 trillion.
Today and tomorrow we're gonna announced that we are going to increase that $600 billion to almost $1 trillion of investment, real investment and real opportunity by details in many areas.
Not even Trump knew this, and he was like, damn. I was thinking, imagine having that kind of money where you're like, oh, let's just chuck it to nice round number 1 trillion. What's 400 billion among friends? Wild. Anyway, later that evening, Ronaldo is seen arriving at the White House for a dinner, which it wasn't just Ronaldo, it was a bunch of people as well. We had Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, etc. And it looks like Elon and Trump might be buddies again. You know, as you could see by the way he friendlily tapped him on the stomach. Also in Trump's speech last night at this dinner, he mentioned that Barron was a big fan. I mean, we know, we've covered that Barron is, he's a big football fan, but he's also a big Ronaldo fan, meaning there's only one GOAT that you're allowed to have in this world, and clearly Barron's is Ronaldo.
You know, my son is a big fan of Ronaldo, wherever Ronaldo is here. Ronaldo. And Barron got to meet him, and I think he respects his father a little bit more now, just the fact that I introduced you. So I just want to thank you both for being here. Thank you very much.
I mean, I think the thing that everyone is wondering about is why Ronaldo wanted to go see Trump. Obviously, there are, there's jokes online. Oh, we're now going to have a rigged World Cup because because obviously America's hosting it and Ronaldo and Portugal have now qualified and this will be his last World Cup. But in reality, I think the more reasonable explanation is that in a Piers Morgan interview that happened last week, Ronaldo said that he actually respects Trump and he wants to speak to him and he'd like to speak to him about world peace, what they have in common, and obviously the World Cup. Now, it's not actually clear if Trump and Ronaldo had a one-on-one, and I'll be honest, I don't think Americans understand how big Ronaldo is, because Americans, they still call it soccer and stuff like that. And in fact, I was speaking to someone from America yesterday, and they literally asked, who is Ronaldo? So I don't know if Trump appreciates there's levels to this. And, Trump and Ronaldo, I think they're close to the same level at this point. So it's not clear if they had a one-on-one or what could have come of it. Maybe they did. Maybe it was behind closed doors. So I guess we'll just have to see what happens in the coming days. But there you go. Ronaldo and Trump in 2025 is wild. Moving on. But speaking about insanely wild things and also football, here's a question I never thought I would be asking. Was black magic used in a World Cup qualifier? Yeah. So on Monday, Nigeria and DR Congo played, but only one could qualify. Now, Nigeria ended up losing on penalties despite the fans' best attempts at sabotaging, throwing bottles and shit.
Chidera Ijuki ignores the bottle and slides it in.
But the wild part is that Nigeria's head coach, he started talking about blaming the penalty shootout on voodoo. Yeah, so footage shows in the final minutes of the, the penalty shootout, chaos erupting on the sideline as their coach, Eric Chile, he was seen trying to confront someone on Congo's team. Now, luckily, and this happened not once but twice, luckily people stepped in before it could actually lead to physical violence. But when he was actually asked in a post-match interview why was he so pissed off, he bizarrely said this.
During all the penalty session, a guy of Congo did some voodoo every time. So this is why I was a little nervous after him.
Yeah. What did you see?
Yeah, something like that. With the I don't know if it's a water or something like that. So
yeah. So allegations of voodoo. It's not something that I thought I'd be speaking about this week, but there you go. To be fair, this is Nigeria's second World Cup in a row where they haven't qualified, so was it voodoo? Was it bad luck? Dunno. Moving on. Also, huge twist in the DIVID case, and it kind of goes against everything we thought we knew, and according to different reports that we were reading. So just one single day after TMZ reported on Monday that police were not close to an arrest in this case.
We have spoken with people at the LAPD today, and they are not close to making an arrest. We are told it is, quote, nowhere imminent.
An LAPD source revealed to NBC4 that David is now in fact being identified as a suspect in the relation to the death of the 15-year-old Celeste Rivas. But it gets even stranger because the 20-year-old singer, whose real name is David Burke, he is allegedly not cooperating with the investigation despite his PR team this entire time saying that he was. Now, as we reported on before, Celeste, she went missing, and then her dismembered body parts were found in the trunk of an impounded Tesla, which, belonged to David. But we heard back in September that investigators suspect that there is more than one person likely involved in the disposal of her body. And they say that a reason no arrest is being made yet is because they are still trying to even determine the cause of her death. Because for now, we don't even know if this was a homicide. Yeah, it's confusing. Now, if this LAPD source is correct, then I don't think it looks good for David, and I imagine arrests would be made soon. But these sources may not be true, who knows? But of course, if anything changes, which it probably will, I'll keep you guys updated. Moving on. Also happening yesterday, it's just been a bizarre string of news over the weekend and the beginning of the week, but Nicki Minaj addressed the United Nations at their headquarters in New York. We're going from anaconda to human rights at... Oh, that's a transition right there. Now, even more interestingly, she was actually working with the Trump administration and the White House to deliver these concerns about Christian persecution in Nigeria. As we covered just recently, she tweeted that she was thankful for Trump even addressing and raising awareness about what's going on in Nigeria. They then reached out to her and said, well, speak about it at the United Nations if you want. And then she obviously said yes. She started off by saying that she was very nervous, but...
In Nigeria, Christians are being targeted, driven from their homes, and killed. Churches have been burned. Families have been torn apart, and entire communities live in fear constantly, simply because of how they pray. And I want to be clear. Protecting Christians in Nigeria is not about taking sides or dividing people. It is about uniting humanity. It's about what I've always stood for my entire career, and I will continue to stand for that. For the rest of my life, I will care if anyone, anywhere, is being persecuted for their beliefs. Thank you.
She also said that Christians are being targeted, driven from their homes, families are being torn apart simply because of how they pray, and that it's becoming a growing problem around the world. But here's the crazy part. Her speech came at a very crucial time, because we also covered that the day before she made this speech, 25 girls were kidnapped from their hostels at about 4 a.m. in the morning. These armed men, they scaled a fence, rounded up the girls, walked them into the bushes. They haven't been seen since. And then also, the same day of her speech about, problems in Nigeria, there was a claimed terror attack on a church, and the whole thing was live streamed. They ended up abducting a pastor and several worshippers and killed at least 3. So, just around this speech alone, there are truly horrific things going on in Nigeria right now. And the thing is, change starts with awareness that this is even going on. Now, as for what Nigeria thinks about this, their president have said that these allegations portraying Nigeria's security challenges as targeted, to one specific religion, they say that this is a misrepresentation of reality, and that the country's violence faces everyone regardless of beliefs. But let me know what your thoughts are on this situation. But for now, moving on. Also, huge news for the unemployed gamers. GameStop have just announced their first ever trade in anything day, where you don't need money to buy your games or your consoles. You simply need to give them any personal items that you may have in exchange for store credit. And when I read this, I thought, man, how does this not end in catastrophe? You know how many people are going to troll them? Now, here's the thing. GameStop have always had a trade-in system where you can bring your old console or old games, and they'll give you store credit. But this is the first time where they're saying, actually, anything goes. If it can fit into this size box, they'll take it. Now, even though they do say anything, there are some very specific restrictions that they do mention, and those include weapons, ammo, dead or alive animals, although taxidermied animals, they're apparently fine, drugs, sexual and explicit items, hazardous waste. I think you get the point. You know? Now, what GameStop are going to be doing with all of these random items or how they will value them is completely unknown. So, 6th of December, that's the date. I'd love to see how this goes down. Moving on. Also, since we last spoke, this might be my favorite news of the day. A new study suggests that raccoons are showing early signs of domestication. Cats, dogs, raccoons. One big happy family. Now, the study conducted at the University of Arkansas suggests that raccoons living in urban areas of North America are physically changing in response to life around humans. Now, here's the thing. The researchers say that domestication of wild animals starts with them just simply hanging around humans and adapting to their environment on their own rather than humans stepping in and, forcing them in and domesticating them. They say that, dogs hung around ancient garbage piles and cats showed up for the mice that followed. And in this process, over hundreds of years, physical changes were observed. And those are like shorter snouts, smaller heads, floppier ears, white patches of fur, etc. Now, this pattern, which has been noted all the way back in the 1800s, it's called domestication syndrome. And raccoons in the Big 25 and before GTA 6 might have that syndrome. Of the 20,000 raccoons observed across the United States, researchers discovered that city raccoons have shorter snouts than those living in rural areas, meaning they're getting that domestication syndrome, physically changing. Not gonna lie to you, I'm a big fan of this. Yay, science. Moving on. And then lastly, I know we're only supposed to cover 6 stories on a Rapid Fire Wednesday, but I'll give you a bonus 7th because what the helly? Remember not long ago we spoke about how 3 people died at Disney World in just 10 days, which is kind of going against numbers since only 68 people have died there since 1971 and they've had literally billions of visitors. Well, since we reported that, 2 more people have died there at Disney World. The numbers are getting weird. That's 5 deaths in the space of 1 month. People are even commenting 5 nights at Mickey's. This is getting ridiculous. Now, I must add, none of these are linked to foul play, rather just medical emergencies or, very tragically, you know what. And authorities say that none of them are linked to one another. It's just one of those wild coincidences. Either way, that's where we're leaving it today. I will see you again on Friday for a long wrap-up of everything. So, I hope you're having a great week so far, and I will see you at the end of the week. Subscribe to the channel, guys. We've got so close to 1 million, and we need to do it by the end of the year, or Alex is fired. Woo!